Hi, thank you for joining me.
Hi. Thanks for inviting me.
I'm really interested to talk to you because I know your background is very different from mine as far as the creative pursuits that you're in. Will you start with just telling us about yourself and your creative practice or practices?
Well, I'm Dave. As of right now, I mostly do performance art, theater. I'm currently directing a play, a live stage adaptation of Nosferatu that will open in October for Halloween. When I'm not directing, I'm acting in whatever I can get permission to, whether it be plays, voiceover, film, and whatnot. And when I'm not doing that, I'm performing as Devlin Monroe, which is my drag name as well.
Lots of performance.
Lots of performance.
What is your earliest memory of creating, or when did you get started with doing creative things?
Of course, like almost every kid, drawing and coloring and painting and those kinds of things. I was a military child, so we moved around a bunch. When I was having difficulty making friends, you could kind of already tell that I was a little bit of a director because I would use my action figures and stage these incredible, you know, epic battle scenes. And it wasn't enough to just they do cool things. And the whole thing had to tell a story from beginning, middle, and end. One of my earliest memories is literally watching a movie in kindergarten and it just blowing my mind. It was The Red Balloon. I don't know if you're familiar with the old French movie. It's like a short film, like 15-minute short film that won a special Oscar back in the 60s when it came out. But it was about a little boy who makes friends with a little red balloon. And it has one of the most horrifying death scenes in all of cinema. Um,
Wow.
yeah, when the bullies pop the balloon and literally the boy's dreams are deflated.
So, how did you get into theater? What sparked your desire to go into that?
Definitely from my childhood love of film, love of movies. And I also saw a play. I was a musician first. So I didn't discover theater or have the courage to try out for theater until my junior year of high school. Up until then, I was a musician. So I started out as a violin player, played violin for 4 years. When I moved to the high school, I eventually graduated from, they didn't have proper string orchestra because it was a small town in Texas. They just focused on marching band for football because, football's the all important, end all be all.
It is. Here in Texas.
Funny enough, the end all be all comes from Shakespeare. It's from Macbeth, I believe. The high school I went to didn't have marching, or they were only focusing on marching band. So I had basically had two choices: don't play anything and figure out something else to do, or play an instrument I don't know how to play. I eventually found percussion as a way around that because I was like, oh, well, I could at least read music. But then I ended up loving the hell out of percussion and drums and marching band and the whole drum line, everything else. And that's where I got my first performance chops, so to speak. Performing on stage with it was different with the orchestra and the orchestration band because you kind of blend in with everybody else, unless you're first chair or sometimes when I was playing the timpani or the gong, you could really stand out. But marching band was because we did the competitions with the
Yeah.
formations and all that. So it was very performative in that way. That's where I got used to performing in a crowd, performing of like one of like many, many. So it was less pressure except for music solos, but you could easily block them out in the football stadium. They were just globules of human beings in the stands. That helped me get over my nerves. I was always very extroverted when I was younger. And then when I became a teenager, I was much more introverted and closed off. Performance kind of helped me get out of that.
Now you do lots of theater.
Yeah, as much as I can. Yeah, as much as I
You
can. New
do,
York City, I was doing both. I went to acting school in New York City
uh,
and studied there, but it's real tough finding work there. I would occasionally come back to Texas, get some work or travel and do some regional theater. Would go to the big, like every single like region in the United States have these huge like theater conferences where you audition for like hundreds of theater companies. And I ended up getting work from there. I never found too much work in New York. I always had to leave and come back and keep trying. But I was in a punk band when I was in New York too, playing drums.
oh, fun.
So yeah, it was kind of the perfect blend of both. And I'm
So
always thinking about
there
picking up another instrument here.
are videos of your band online.
Oh gosh, no, this was 2000. We used to have a MySpace. That was the last dying breath of the band. was MySpace. But yeah, I was performing in like 2004, 2003. So like, unless we hired a photographer to come out and take pictures of
Right.
it, there was no way you were going to have a recording of it. Nobody had the easy little camera in our pockets like we do today.
I think
So
sometimes it's good for us.
yeah, I remember those days of like, oh, I could do embarrassing things and no one would ever find out. But also like it was really hard to like so much of my creative career, I can't really prove that you know, there are so many plays that I've done where I'm like, I can't really like, I mean, it's on my resume.
Yeah.
As far as like, posting anything to like social media, there's just very few photos. I have some photos of some of my early reviews in the newspaper, but sometimes there was just one photo for that review and it wasn't of me.
Yeah.
It lists my name in the article. Kids these days, they're able to prove all the stuff that they've done.
Do you remember like the first time you realized that performance had impact on your mental health or your wellness?
Oh yeah, waiting for my first entrance of my first performance in my very first play in high school for like 2,000 little children, by the way. It was a children's play. And that sort of like butterflies in the stomach feeling and adrenaline and excitement. I literally ran to the bathroom, puked my guts out, came back, and was like, oh my God, I want to do this for the rest of my life. It's strange to find your purpose at like your life's dream anytime, really, but to feel it immediately and intensely at 17, the road ahead suddenly became so clear. It was like, okay, I know what I'm going to do. Like,
Yeah.
second I graduate high school, I'm gonna be an actor.
Did you
Uh,
face any pushback on that from family or friends?
no, not really. It was a matter of like I just changed groups in high school. I was suddenly a band nerd, and then suddenly I became a theater nerd. And those circles got along fairly well. It wasn't like I was a jock and then became an actor, or, vice versa. So the two groups were pretty easy to mingle with. And most people are terrified of being up on stage. So it's like, like people are just always like, oh, wow, you must be pretty brave to like get up there and do that. People are usually intimidated by that. I wasn't a great student. They weren't like, oh, damn, Dave's not going to go to Harvard. No, that was not going to be an option. My parents saw that I was very much a creative kid. They knew I wasn't necessarily a bad student. They knew there were things I was interested in. And if I wasn't interested, I didn't care. It was like math, chemistry, all that stuff. I barely passed high school. What saved me was all my extracurricular activities. And the fact that I love history and literature, I ended up doing really well in those classes. So it kind of ended up, balancing out at the end. But yeah, I think, it was a minimum of 70 to pass high school and I got a 70. I was like, oh my gosh. But yeah, my SATs, I was on the math and everything. I did horribly, but I got a perfect score on the other side. My mom was probably a little bit more supportive, but my dad wasn't not supportive. He loves theater and movies. So I got most of my love of cinema and everything from my dad. So I knew they both just wanted me to be sure. They knew how passionately I felt about it. And it was more like saying like, hey, I'm not going to go to college. I'm going to go to acting school right away. And it's going to be in New York City. That was really the convincing.
Yeah.
They just wanted to make sure that I was safe and had a good situation when I went there and that I was okay. And yeah, that all worked out. I ended up auditioning for a big school there and got in. My first 2 years in New York were at the schools in the Upper West Side, near Central Park. So, it was a perfect place to be as a young actor.
Has there been a time when performing felt really important or supportive for you?
Well, like I said, I was a military child. We bounced around a bit and that was okay. But as I got older, it got tougher. When we moved to San Antonio after my dad retired from the Army, it was a little rough for the whole family, but specifically rough for me. My brother had to move away because he was attacked by gang members
Mm.
and kind of freaked my mom out and my brother. So he moved away, and he was my older brother. He moved away to live with cousins in Oregon, and I was left without my brother and had to navigate elementary and middle school. I was bullied pretty heavily. That was another reason why my academics were never very good. I dreaded going to school. But music really saved me from that time period. I had a lot of troubles where my parents took me to therapy, group therapy, because, I was feeling suicidal. So, I'm just like being very absent from school, like sneaking out. Like my parents would, I would basically not go to school. I would just be truant. And then when they eventually found out, it was like, well, I got to go to school. That was before homeschooling was even
Yeah.
really considered an option at all. And they were talking the 80s and early 90s. But music and the world of watching movies and cartoons kept me from hurting myself. So I used art as basically a coping mechanism. But things got better once I moved to high school. I stayed all 4 years of high school in the same place and was able to leave all the bullies and I was able to basically escape from that life. And then things definitely changed. But music and the band and the camaraderie, I was able to make new friends fairly quickly because we all shared this thing in common. I started high school. People don't know this, like marching band, people who do marching band, like our school season starts like 3 weeks to a month before everyone else's because the first football game is really quickly after school starts in the
Right.
fall. Football players have to be ready to play that first game, and we had to be ready to play music and march and everything else for that first game. So we started basically like summer band camp. That was kind of cool to make friends before my first day of high school. I spent an entire month getting to know everyone who was in the band.
Yeah.
But at least I showed up on day one in high school and I knew some people. It wasn't like all the times I had before where I was constantly moving around as a military kid and I'm always the new kid.
Yeah.
That was tough. But it also made me very independent and very strong. I'm definitely very comfortable being by myself. I don't need anyone else to give myself fun. I make my own fun. If you don't make your own fun, it's not fun, it's entertainment.
I like that.
I definitely feel much more self-reliant and then some of the other kids because of my moving around and having a little bit thicker skin and having to make new friends constantly. Meeting new people has never been a problem for me and still isn't.
Yeah.
Now, I like if I hadn't had that sort of background, I don't know if I could have had the courage to move to New York City by myself,
Yeah.
which is unheard of. Most people would be like, "What? You moved to New York City and not know a single soul?" I'm like, "Yep, been there, done that."
Well, and I know you and Stephanie are planning on moving abroad, and I'm going to move abroad too. And I think that my
Yeah.
experience with the military it helps with that as well, right? It's not as scary to me to move to somewhere that I haven't lived before because I've done it.
If I navigated the streets of New York in the first 2, 3 months of living there, this is no problem.
Yeah. Well,
Like
and
I
back
personally
then when we
recently,
did that, there were no like Google Maps or
no,
things, no cell
no,
phones. If you were lost, you were just
nope,
lost.
yep. Just learn how to ask somebody for help.
Yeah.
If you were lucky to have an attendant in the New York City subway, a lot of the time there was just like nobody there. I'm like, oh crap. No, you had to learn how to read a map, right?
Yes.
That was posted in the subway or on the wall.
Even us creative people that have this innate desire to always do something creative,
Yeah.
sometimes get trapped by other life tasks as an adult, like all of our to-dos, and we sometimes let our creativity go by the wayside. Has that happened to you at all?
Oh, of course. I mean, I'm a professional procrastinator for sure.
What
Use it to my advantage.
what do you notice when that happens? Have you seen a shift in your mood or the way that you approach things? What makes you say it's time to get back to being creative again?
Really, I unfortunately it's one of those things I wish I could get better at, and I've gotten a little bit better, especially talking with my therapist. Over the last like couple of years. I need a deadline. If I don't have either a self-imposed deadline or someone else's deadline, I will wait till the absolute last second
Okay.
until it's like, okay, I have to start doing this now, or else I will not finish. Until I feel that feeling of like, okay, if I don't start working on this now, then I know I won't get done.
Yeah.
That's the fire that ultimately pushes me over. But as I've gotten older, sometimes I'm like, well, I've actually sort of embraced it. If there's nothing I can do about it, I might as well try to use it in some way or at least understand it and use it to my advantage. What I've found is it works out in my favor sometimes. It keeps me from making too many strong decisions too early, myself more flexible, more open to collaboration.
Okay.
And I feel less stubborn about, because I've done that in the past where I've made a very, very strong decision very early, and it turns out it kind of limited my options. And I should have been, maybe I should have just waited a little longer to finally make a decision until I've really considered all the options instead of fighting it, because that's what would make me really frustrated and get me even more down like sort of a depressive rabbit hole was fighting against my mental process.
Yeah.
Once I finally like it clicked, where I was like, oh, this is just my process. Like this
So
is who I am.
yeah, like understanding how your brain works and then saying, okay, because this is how my brain works, I'm going to approach things in this particular way to utilize that.
Right. And now it's become more fun and less like dread of what's wrong with you? Do you not care? Can you do this anymore? And then you'd start spiraling, right? You put these self imposed expectations on yourself. And they begin to feel very real and existential. And then suddenly you feel worthless and then you feel like you can't do it, or the whole imposter syndrome thing. I get that almost every time I'm about to set foot on stage.
Yeah.
I have this sense of panic of like, what are my lines? What am I doing here?
Uh-huh.
And then, slap in the face and suddenly, but the second I get on stage, it all comes back to me. It's like, oh yeah, this.
Yes. I mean, I've done performance throughout my life as well. I was a skater, I was a baton twirler, I did flag line for high school and college. So I know exactly what you're talking about that, like, am I going to remember it? Like that last minute, like,
Yeah.
oh no. But you do. It comes back.
Yeah. Life is on the wire. The rest is waiting.
How do you decide what kind of projects you want to work on?
When it comes to theater and film, it all starts with the writer. It's really tough. There are a lot of people in the way, especially as an actor. An actor just can't go act somewhere. He has to have permission, and it has to be a project that is actually happening, and someone
Yeah.
has to cast you. Very often, you don't get to pick and choose. You just try to audition for everything you can, and hopefully, you get it. And then you make the best of what you're given as an artist. The only people who can pick and choose their projects are people like Brad Pitt and Margot Robbie, people who are so big that they're also producers and produce their own work. I mean, these last few years is the only time I've been able to really like kind of figure out what projects I've been wanting to do, because I'm on the selection committee of a theater, like a script selection committee. So I'm with the artistic director. There's a group of us, and we all read through all the submissions. The theater that I mostly work at here in San Antonio is all original work. We don't do anything that's been published before. We rely on submissions from playwrights from the world, really. They tend to be more, the United States and then Texas. We try to
Yeah.
focus mostly on the Texas playwrights. But last few plays that I've directed, I was able to read all the ones that were being considered and then sort of like fight for one that I was like, ooh, this one should definitely be a part of the season. And also, I'd love to direct it, and then sneak my way into directing it. As opposed to what would normally happen was, especially here in San Antonio, either the director would quit or the director would get fired. And I'd be the one they'd call and be like, Dave, show opens in 3 weeks. Can you direct the show? And I'd be like,
Ah,
oh,
okay.
okay. And then I have to learn everything I need to learn about the play as
Yeah.
quickly as possible and absorb it, find a way to direct these actors and come up with a vision and communicate that vision to many other people and artists. Yeah, I mean, since it is such a collaborative art form, it's less about the project, especially in the theater, and it's more about who you want to collaborate with.
Yeah.
Like, do I want to work with a writer that I enjoy their work and they take my notes and they give me feedback and it works, and a good costumer, a good makeup artist, a good lighting person, just people I enjoy figuring out and problem solving with is actually the work. And then once the play is open, it's almost like, oh, that's over with. My job is done. And that's when the actors take over, the actors and the stage manager. It's an interesting process. I work really hard for 2 to 3 months. And then once the show is actually done, it's not my show anymore. You can't make changes. You can't really tweak things. You have to basically give over the art form to other people and trust that they will keep going in the direction you have put them in as a
Yeah.
director. With our shows, they're very limited. It's only a run of 4 weeks. So there's only so much they can mess with the show in 4 weeks. So yeah, but if it's something like a Broadway show, that's different, because the Broadway show could run until people don't want to see it. If
Yeah.
something's really popular in New York, Chicago, and LA, it'll run until they think it won't make any more money.
Mhm.
They'll squeeze every single breath out of it until it's done. Some shows like Cats ran for 27 years on Broadway. It was ridiculous. I was in New York when it finally closed and it was like, oh, the end of an era.
How do you think the performances you are involved in impact your experience of community?
Well, just strangers all sitting in a room and deciding that this weird thing called performance art and theater is a thing. It's a little bit the same as a film, but there's more of that give and take of the performer and then the laughter or the crying. You can feel it, like there's a metaphysical sort of kinetic energy in a room of hearing words and catharsis and giving yourself over to the story. And it's like that for the actors on stage too. It's letting go of your real life, the life outside of the theater, and sort of letting go for a couple of hours and putting yourself in someone else's shoes for a couple hours and telling, basically just telling a story. Theater is as ancient a community activity as we have, other than something like music. Theater goes way back before the Greeks. It was a way to communicate important ideas of the day. Like the zeitgeist philosophers were writing plays about love and community. Everybody sits down and explores love for a couple hours. That's as a community, and we can all agree or disagree, but it's throwing those ideas into the air. There's something magical about that. Sitting with someone else and art is there and you're just soaking it all in. That's what I think community really is, a general sharing of knowledge and experience. Hopefully we all get better as a community because of it, because we're sharing.
Have you ever done any performance that is telling part of your own story?
Ooh, autobiographical? No, I mean, it's one of those things of like what helped me kind of get through some of the harder times of my life was actually just being able to take a break from it and not be me.
Yeah.
Pet is such a great feeling. It helps me, gives me a break from dealing with my problems to deal with somebody else's problems for a little bit. You have to be careful that you actually separate those two, though, and give yourself permission to be not you for this particular time. But you have to make sure you go back to yourself. Having done this for a long time now, I've seen people who would fudge the lines between who they were and the characters they were performing to where you don't even know, they didn't know who they were anymore. That's definitely something I wanted to avoid. But luckily, my theater teacher in high school taught me a technique of before you walk into the theater or rehearsal, find something on the wall and touch it. That's where you put your troubles for the day. Do your work. Whatever was going on before, it doesn't matter now. You're here doing this work. But don't forget when you leave to touch that spot again and take yourself back to what you still need to get done, which is just as important, and it's your actual life as well. I've always been fascinated by other people's stories, the stories of history and whatever people could conjure up in their own head. You do have to bring yourself to, to a performance role. One of my basic techniques of acting, and I teach this to actors all the time, is you've gotten a role, you're reading the script. The first thing you should do is make two lists. A list of everything you have in common with the character, and then everything you don't have in common with the character. Good news. Everything you have in common with the character, you don't have to worry about. Who you are naturally is going to come out in those things that you share in common. So you don't have to work on that. The work are the things that you don't have in common with the character. And you need to find a way to bring yourself to that point to where you can see yourself doing those kinds of things. And it's the whole idea of living truthfully under imaginary circumstances.
So do you think that can help people work through or learn skills to help them? Like somebody who struggles with a particular thing, if they have a character who does that thing, is that gonna, them doing all of this rehearsal and performance of that activity, would that make them more comfortable with it, more able to approach it?
It depends on whether you have someone who's almost like a therapist. Like a director could be a good therapist in a way where there shouldn't be any judgment. I think it was Robert De Niro said, if you play a villain, you can't judge him. A villain is just the hero of their own story. You have to let that go aside. If you're dealing with a specific issue, you don't want to fuel the judgmental part of it. If someone has a speech impediment, there was an actor on the recent season of The Penguin with Colin Farrell, who actually has a really bad speech impediment. They wrote it as the character having a really bad speech impediment too. The actor talked about it on a podcast. There was an official podcast for the show, and he was a guest on one of the episodes. He talked about how important it was to give representation to people like him, but also not like it become too cartoonish or too, too stereo, then you suddenly kind of on the side of like stereotype and making fun of, so you just have to be careful. I think, yes, you can explore your, whatever that you feel depressed. Do you want to necessarily do a play about being depressed? It just depends on whether you want to. You definitely need guidance. I would say err on the side of caution with using that kind of way to process things. But as long as you're being safe, I can imagine it always goes back to what it must be like to be a painter. Because I mean, painters are just doing things in their own little bubble. So I bet that must feel great to be totally free and not have to, you know, because with the art form that I do, it's all about the performance. If nobody comes and sees it, then what was the point? But some other art forms, it's like, well, you could do this in isolation forever.
You're correct. As a painter or a sketcher or somebody who does 2D or even some 3D art, you could
Or
do
even
that
a novelist, it may
all on
never
your
get
own.
published, but you can continue to work on it forever. Yeah.
Yeah. Performance, especially plays, you're doing that usually with other people and then for an audience.
Yeah. So it's a group effort. There are one person shows, but I mean, who likes those, right? No, I'm just kidding.
Do you develop a close bond with the people you work with on different performances?
100%. It's so weird. And it happens every single time. And almost all of us are always surprised when we don't stay in touch. We become families,
Mhm.
intense, almost like a family. And then we do the show, and it's just like high school. We're like, we're gonna keep in touch forever,
Yeah.
like save each other numbers in our phones, and then like weeks later, you're like, who is this?
Yeah.
When they text you, it is like you go through a war together and bond. You figure out this thing, get it done, do the shows, and it's either sold out every time or nobody shows up most of the time. It's a give
Yeah.
and take, but you still feel a very close bond with everyone involved. You just move on to the next project. And especially actors. Actors are in a constant state of unemployment. You love being in a job because it means you're with your peers and you're with fellow collaborators, and you never want it to end, but unfortunately it has to, and then you have to find a new family and a new workplace. I'm sure a lot of people out there don't understand that there's a good part of that and there's a bad part of that. The good part is if you don't like your employee, your fellow employees, you won't have them very long. The
Yeah.
bad news is if you love them, then you're going to have to find a new family here pretty soon.
What you're saying makes me think about when I go to the art therapy conference every year, where I've been living for the last 10 years. I am the only art therapist, and the closest person is an hour drive. So there's not that community of people who understand what my profession is and what I do on a day-to-day basis. When I go to the conference, it's like, I'm with my people. These people
Yeah.
understand and get me. It sounds like that's kind of like that when you guys are together working on a show, you're with your people.
Yeah, exactly. And especially for people like me who it's not our full-time job, it's usually just our part-time passion, our dream job as opposed to a real life job.
Yeah.
So we have to set apart part of our day and life with people. It's great, but it's really hard to suddenly go back to what's considered normal life after we're all creatures of habit. So you almost miss the ritual of getting to the theater, getting ready, getting yourself mentally and physically prepared, and then doing this exciting, energetic performance for a couple hours, and then finding a way to relax from that and come back to yourself. And then once that's taken away from you, you'll find yourself on a Friday and Saturday night just like, who am I? Or, oh my God, this is miserable.
How do you think your creative practice will change since you're moving to another country?
It's a new chance to work with totally different people from different backgrounds and perspectives. Not to say that I'm bored with America, but I kind of get what's going on here, the culture war, the perspectives and the arguments. I don't know how much longer I can exist in this and find a way to express myself and add to that conversation. I don't know. Like, so this is going to be great, because I get to go, somewhere where it's just they have a completely different language, a completely different, like not small talk, but what am I trying to say? They have different stories, they have different cultural milestones, they have different focuses, different lifestyle completely. It's less about the rat race there. It's more about life sort of easing along as opposed to rush, rush, rush. It's going to give me a chance to maybe breathe and find out what is the next step in this whole creative world. I suddenly have all of Europe, but it's not just the country that I'm moving to. Now I'm going to have access to so many other cultures, languages, stories, and people, and really just to get inspired by other people's work too. There's only so much I can do or see here in San Antonio, Texas, but a couple hour of plane ride and suddenly I'm in Berlin watching, theater or seeing a Swedish film in Stockholm. It's like, wow, going to the home of Strindberg and Shakespeare and Bertolt Brecht as opposed to just them being abstractions from afar, you know.
Yeah, getting to actually be in new experiences, like you said, making the abstract more concrete.
All I see is just more shoes that I can put my own feet in.
What kind of advice might you give to somebody who is curious about using art or creativity for their mental health, but they have no idea where to start?
It's definitely an act of courage, not just doing it in front of other people, but for yourself too. Like, are you going to be honest, truthful, and honest with yourself, or like, because that's the hardest person to be doing it for. Screw everybody else. Take a chance, but trust yourself. Don't be careful about other people, but trust yourself.
What kind of misconceptions have you encountered as far as like performance, creativity, and mental health?
Really, people who don't do what I do, they're sort of like, what they perceive they must, like the one of my favorite like misconceptions of like people like me, actors or directors, we must be great liars. It's simply not true. It's so hard to get to a point of truth in what you're trying to do. It's all about being truthful, as brutally truthful and honest and open as possible are the usually is the way to go. So yeah, that's a common misconception. And also that we're naturally extroverts as well. It's another misconception. It's like, no, most of the time, like as soon as I'm done, I just want to crawl into a little ball and not talk to anybody.
Yeah, yeah.
It's sort of like exercise in a way. It's exercising a certain part of the brain. And like it helps with, processing, it helps with empathy, it helps with a distraction, it helps with, it's also helping other people and not making it about yourself, which is a great is something that's misconceived. The idea that I could help someone else who's dealing with something makes me feel good about what I'm doing. If somebody sees some truth in what I'm doing on stage and their life has changed for it, then I've done my job and I'm happy with my art and my work. Being able to help other people and change other people's lives helps me with my own life, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I can see the mental health benefits of all of that. What role do you hope that performance will have in your life in the next 5 to 10 years?
I hope to have my feet and hands firmly planted in the theatrical scene of Portugal, and I'm accepted and a part of the community, as opposed to like this stranger coming in and setting some sort of trying to change what already sort of works. It's really just I'd love to be as a supportive and like people consider me a supportive member of the community who's here to lift up everyone who has come before and will come later, as opposed to like coming in and invading, almost like a colonial sort of reverse
Yeah,
colonialism on Portugal. Like I'm coming to invade and change you. No, it's more of like I want to learn who they are, and hopefully they accept me and I accept them, and and we grow together over the next 5-10 years. Then I'll move on to the next country. I'm just kidding.
what's something that you wish you would have known? If you think back to young Dave at 20 years old, what do you wish you would have known then that you know now?
That not every single audition or every single job is you apply for and don't get is the end all be all of the rest. It doesn't define who you are.
Yeah.
Just keep trying, and it's more of a numbers game. The more you try, what is I mean I should know it off the top of my head, but it's basically my Instagram profile note is what I've learned, and that I would try to explain to my younger self. So there is no comparison between that which is lost by not succeeding and that which is lost by not trying.
Yeah.
It's that whole day of you don't get 100% of the jobs you don't apply for. And it's the same for actors and directors. You don't get 100% of the roles you don't audition for. Just focus on trying to get work and enjoy the fluidity of that. I wish I realized when I was younger is like, this is actually the fun time, even though you're not getting any work. You still don't have to lock yourself in to
Yeah.
anything. This is the time to be as free and experimental as possible. So take advantage. As you get older, you naturally start locking in things and becoming who you're eventually going to be.
Being open to things that maybe wouldn't be your first choice.
Yep. There's so many things where I'm like, why didn't I do that when I was younger? Especially voiceover. I don't know why I didn't start trying to be a voiceover actor right away, because I would be in such a better place now. And the competition was so much less back in the late 90s, early 2000s. Now there's always competition, but there's more work. If I could have just focused on that, I'd actually be making a living doing what I love, as opposed to, in a hobby or, a side passion.
Yeah, I think that's one of the hardest things for us creative people is like, how do you make it
Pay
a
the bills, and
sustainable living?
living in New
You
York
want
was a
to.
struggle. I
Yeah.
should have put that much pressure on me too. It was like, man, that whole like, if I can make it here, I can make it anywhere. Why did I do that? Why didn't I just, do it for fun for 5, 10 years and then decide to go to someplace like New York or LA? Why did I have to jump right into the massive competitive pool that is New York?
Not thinking there's only one way to do it.
Right. It wasn't like I didn't, it was an ABC. I would be an actor. you know,
Yeah.
First I go to New York, and then they offer me a Broadway show, and then suddenly I'm a movie star, and then I'm directing movies like Stanley Kubrick, and then I win an Oscar, and then I'm buried in the tar pits of, you know, the La Brea tar pits in Los Angeles.
Yeah. So right now, what is an artist, a performance, a topic, a theme, something that is very inspiring to you, or something that you would like to investigate?
Well, I really have just started doing drag over the last few years. I have a drag mama, but I'm still learning so much. What's really inspired me recently is just how like amazing like drag in general has become. Not just more mainstream, but the fact that, it's letting people explore gender in such a fun, curious way, no matter where you come from in your gender experience. It's playing around with that performative. Gender is performance, basically. This idea of everything we do when we get up every day is a way. If you identify as this male cis sort of thing, you're kind of putting on the costume of the male cis, alpha male
Yes.
cis, whether you realize it or not. You know, I know that whole thing that's been catching on are those male performance, like the performative male. Have you seen those?
I've seen a lot of videos on TikTok, especially of women in male-dominated fields. They act towards the men the way the men normally act towards them, and then talk about the reactions they got.
Wow. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, there's these mini competitions that have been popping up, and you can be male or female, but it's like, who does the perfect performative male, with the man bun and reading the feminist book, like in their little
Yeah, yeah.
satchel, and that sort of binary, like they're wearing man purse and the specific types of glasses they wear.
How did you get
Like,
started with drag?
watching it evolve in popular culture, having lived as a queer person in New York City. I mean, first time, went down to like the Village and Christopher Street and all that, it's just like, whoa, this is so crazy and so awesome. Not really thinking of that as something I could involve myself in as a performer. And I wasn't necessarily drawn to it then. And, oh, this could be a performance art for myself. More of just, what's that? And then as RuPaul's Drag Race has become more popular, and then just more drag being performed around the city and going to see it, it's like, oh, there was so much about it that I just didn't know about yet. How great the storytelling is, and how cheeky and fun, and some satire. It could be whatever you want it to be. I didn't realize how much it was like. I thought you had to be definitely a very effeminate sort of male and present a certain way and that kind of thing. But no, it might have been that when I first encountered drag as a younger man. But now it's just this glorious exploration and fun performance art. It caught me off guard. I at least want to try it. Like,
Yeah.
no matter what, I want to challenge myself and try it. So I did that first. And then once I tried it, I was like, I will like this. I'm coming up with more ideas for different routines, outfits, and different things. And so now it's part of my creative life, not all things, but it's definitely like, all right, if I've got nothing going on directing, I got nothing going on acting, it's something I can DIY too. It's one of those rare things I can build and make my own costume, practice my own makeup at home. And when I'm ready and I've got my routine, I can find a place to perform and do it.
So I
So
actually do not know this. Is there a drag culture in Portugal?
yes, there is. I already found a bar that I can do drag at in Porto called Bar of Soap.
Oh,
It's
I like that actually.
Paul's Drag Race Portugal as well.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's RuPaul's Drag Race is caught on so much internationally that almost every country in Europe now has its own drag race with its own judges and everything else. In Portugal being very LGBTQ plus friendly,
Yeah.
Lisbon and Porto. It's still a fairly conservative country, mostly Catholic, but your rights are much more free to be trans and openly queer there than in many places in the United States. So yeah, no, it's a great place, a great scene. And Spain is right next door too, which has a very, very healthy scene.
So, if people want to find you online, are you online where they can locate you?
Yeah, I'm on mostly Instagram. I've got my, who you see right here right now, which is Dave Stone-Robb. It's just at Dave Stone-Robb on Instagram. My drag Instagram is at Devlin Monroe, spelled DevilynMonroe. I'm from the House of Deville, so I had to sneak in Devil somewhere. And since I'm a big He-Man fan, it's also Evil Lynn, so Devlin,
Uh,
Evil Lynn.
yeah.
And I also love Marilyn Monroe, so it's Devlin Monroe.
I,
So
I
that's the inspiration there.
did it take you a long time to come up with the name?
Yeah, it took one brainstorming session with my drag mother.
Okay.
I hadn't had any preconceived notions. I didn't come up with the name first and then the look. I came up with the look first and then the name, if that makes sense.
So, normally when I'm meeting with my clients, between the session that we're having and the next session, I always ask them, what is one thing you're going to do between now and the next time we meet that is just because you want to do it? It's going to be enjoyable, it's going to help you relax, sounds fun, it'll help your mental health. What for you is something that you want to do soon that would help you in one of those ways?
That's a great question. I'm so focused on the upcoming show and 2 weeks away from starting rehearsals, and that's a 5 week process and then a 4 week performance process. I should figure out something that I need to do just to, hmm, I might, it stumped me.
Is there any hobbies or things that you do other than performing that it's like, I just like doing this, so that's why I do it?
Yeah, maybe get a new obsessive video game to play or something.
Ah, yeah. Yeah.
Because those are like little worlds that you can explore, and they're definitely that great dopamine hit of problem solved.
Too,
Dopamine.
depending on the type of video game you play, it can be similar to the experience you have when being a character on stage.
Oh, big time. One of my favorite, of all time was, Red Dead Redemption 2, which is very much becoming a cowboy, and it's a completely free open world. You even find birds and fish, hunt and skin animals, create clothing and all this crazy stuff. And then also rob banks.
Well, like Oregon Trail, but not as depressing.
Yes, exactly. Which is funny. Like Steph's been playing Oregon Trail.
Oh, that's funny.
It's Oregon Trail, but with zombies.
Oh, interesting.
And you're trying to travel across the United States and survive all the zombies. But it has all the same little mini games as Oregon Trail.
Huh. I think that's a very smart marketing thing for Gen Z and elder millennials.
Yep. It's like we immediately have that nostalgia. Ooh.
Is there any last comments that you have or anything you want to share with us before we wrap up today?
Well, here I can leave you with this one great piece of advice from the great Stan Laurel of Laurel and Hardy. You can lead a horse to water, but a pencil must be lit.
Thank you so much. I
Thank
really
you.
appreciated chatting with you.
Thanks. It was fun.